some of your day to talk into your ear holes about midi-chlorians and roller coasters. Those two things are unrelated, but so are they. They're unrelated at birth, like most people who aren't related. Unrelated at birth, but they're brothers in a brotherly way. Now it's time for the phenomenal brother and the golden voice of the South. They're brothers from different mothers, but they're both really proud to be unrelated at birth.
Did you push the button this time?
I pushed that button, yes.
Okay, you didn't push the right button at the same time.
Why you got to call me out, dude?
Well, just because.
We just started the show.
You got to wonder why they didn't hear the whole 3 minutes. They heard half of the song.
We should really only do a countdown for one cycle of the song anyway.
No, yes, you heard all 3 minutes of it, Turbo. You heard all the push of the buttons, but hey, why are you like all Joker up in the camera? Sit back. This isn't your first rodeo, man.
No. I was just trying to see get my boundaries, see how wide I can go, how slow I can go, how kind of methodical I can go today. So.
Okay. Well, so right now there's only 3 of us. We will be joined by a 4th here very soon. He had prior engagements that Eric, kind of threw on us today at the last minute.
He threw on me. So.
Yeah,
I mean, 2 out of the 3 of us have already been put under a bus, Turbo. I don't know how that makes you feel.
Within the first 2 minutes and 20 seconds?
Hey, look, I'm used to being the one thrown under the bus. So at least give me a little bit of a leeway.
True. That is true.
Let me have a moment of throwing people under the bus for a second.
We will sit under the bus for you.
Okay,
for a second.
Now I'm out from underneath the bus.
Why did Carrie say you're not a race car driver? I'm confused.
Not a race car driver.
Yeah, I don't know. I got nothing.
Speaking of race car driver, Adam, what are your thoughts on your favorite driver winning the NASCAR Cup this weekend?
How about my boy Chase Elliott, who I rooted for before he was a thing, way back when he was Jeff Gordon's number, but.
Well, you did get to see him at Talladega.
Wreck.
A bad wreck.
Right up at the front. Wreck. Yeah, I did. He was in the building that year.
It wasn't right up at the front. It was in the back stretch where we weren't. It was the opposite side.
Well, he was towards the front, though.
That's right. Yeah, he actually, I think he was in the lead.
He was close to it, yeah.
Yeah.
And someone got turned into the wall, literally right in front of him,
Yeah, kind of a Dale Earnhardt style wreck.
Sure.
Hey, Vance Scope. Vance Scope says hello.
Hey, Vance Scope.
We will be talking wrestling tonight, hence my backdrop. For those who are not wrestling fans, you are in the Firefly Funhouse. Oh, man, the logo is covering up Mercy Buzzard.
Oh, darn.
Mercy needed it.
Here, you can be on the bottom.
There you go. So
because it covers up my new window.
Yeah, there you go. So what we have Abby the Witch, Mercy Buzzard, and where we go? Where are we? There we are, Rambling Rabbit.
And you're the friend?
I am Dave Adams.
Well, somebody in the picture has to be the friend. Isn't that his name, the friend?
No, it's the Fiend.
Oh, the Fiend. Okay.
Let me in. That guy.
That guy.
That's why
he's got the Rona.
Right?
No, he doesn't have.
That's why he's the friend. He wants to come in.
Yeah, exactly. They want you to come in. And what's sad now, Adam, is how Ellie's favorite is Alexa Bliss, right?
Sure.
Pink hair. Mm-hmm. You've heard me talk about pink hair. She's normally not really a face. She's normally a heel, but a heel that I can let my daughter watch 90% of the time. but now she is partnered with the Fiend, so she's in this scary funhouse mode. So I don't know how I can let Ellie watch Alexa Bliss right now.
You know, they say never meet your heroes.
Yeah,
well, she actually has met her before, though, but still.
She has met her. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, I mean, when I met Kevin Nash, he told me to burn everything NWO and everything I had of his, to burn it.
Really?
Yeah.
Evidently, you didn't follow through on that advice.
Nope, I still have his shirt.
I met Scott Hall, and he was actually wearing NWO gear.
Well, I mean, that's I don't go there.
It's the same thing, man. I mean, come on, man.
I mean, Kevin Nash made famous on NWO and ravioli. So
what?
Ravioli?
Have you never seen his shoot videos eating ravioli?
No.
Like that's it. There's like 4 or 5 of them that he's got, and that's all he's doing, eating ravioli.
Adam, do
like
you know
Food Network cooking show eating ravioli?
Oh no,
he
just
does
talking crap about wrestling and eating ravioli.
Well,
Wow.
so that's another thing we're going to have to talk tonight when Conrad comes on. Is Adam probably doesn't know the difference between a shoot and a work.
Do you know those terms, Adam? They're not in the dictionary.
No.
You know? Okay, you know what shoot is?
No.
What's your definition of shoot? Definitely not it.
No. what are you, Joe Biden on SNL? Should we wait on all? Let's wait for Conrad for all this, because I think this.
Yeah, because I think it's he'll get a kick out of it, I'm sure.
Yeah, he will.
Oh, I'm glad I'm here for the comedy relief. Yeah.
Oh, look, Matt's on.
And he said I nailed it. See, he gets it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, come on, man. Come on. You got to know those things. I use those all the time.
You've never used shoot and work. You've used face and heel turn. If I had to guess, if a shoot video is he's eating ravioli, I would guess that a shoot video is like out of the ring, not in his character, just sitting around doing stuff. And a work would be like if he was doing a commercial for Chef Boyardee ravioli and like crushes the can in his hand, that would be a work.
He actually has a good kind of in a roundabout way, but he has good philosophy on it.
It is, but so in a roundabout way, you're right, but in another roundabout way, you're totally wrong.
Totally wrong.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if like most weekends, me and Dave, we work ourselves into a shoot most weekends.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, this is going to be fun, y'all. This is going to be fun. Stick around because we will. Conrad is, like I said earlier, when Conrad gets here, we will go into the recording booth. We're going to interview Conrad for the first half of the show. If you don't know who Conrad Thompson is, he actually came from humble beginnings, had nothing to do with the wrestling industry, to where now
a really huge, really big fan. Really,
yeah, was a really big fan.
I'm not supposed to interject. I'm sorry. When you're talking about Conrad, I'm supposed to just sit over here and be quiet. My bad, Dave. Please continue.
You'll understand. He just was a really big fan at first, and found a way to actually get into the industry to where now he has 5 wrestling podcasts, and he's heard by Eric millions every week.
I would think. I mean, there's if most people who know wrestling know his name.
Yeah,
because he's and we'll wait. We'll let him tell his story. We won't tell you his story.
Yeah.
But we'll let him tell you his story.
Yeah,
I mean he's got a humble beginning, and he's got a good story to tell.
Yeah, he does.
He'll tell you he doesn't have a story to tell, but he'll tell a story.
But he'll go on for hours with his story. So if you don't know his podcast, it's Something to Wrestle, where they talk about WWE with current, I guess, Raw producer, or is he both Raw and SmackDown still, Eric?
I think he's been still doing both.
Okay. Bruce Pritchard, who is basically Vince McMahon's right-hand man. He also has 2 WCW podcasts. One 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff, and What Happened When with Tony Schiavone. Which, let me put a little interjection here before Conrad gets on here. Tony Schiavone's skinny does not look like Tony Schiavone. I need fat, plump, WCW style Tony Schiavone, not AEW earring in the left ear Tony Schiavone.
I think he had the earring in the left ear when he was in WCW.
Did he really? I did.
He's had an earring for a long time.
Okay.
For some reason, I remember him without facial hair and an earring in like the mid 90s.
Oh, okay. Well,
for some reason in the suit,
the larger man. But then he also has Grill and JR, which is Jim Ross, where he talks, I guess, everything, right? He talks WWE and AEW.
Well, they do a lot of shows too. Like they do some watch-alongs and things like that.
Yeah.
And Kerry brings up a good point too. He did Atlanta Braves broadcasting.
Did he really? Because
for several years, and not so far past.
I never remember that because he didn't do radio because radio is always Don Sutton. We'll have to ask him when he comes on because I know Conrad and Schiavone are actually good friends. And then his newest podcast is Arn, which is all of Arn Anderson and of the Four Horsemen fame. So
and he's been doing some of these offshoots too, like called Conversations with Conrad.
Oh, really? I hadn't heard that one.
That's the one he's got that comes out today with Jim Hurd. It's Conversations with Conrad. I don't know if it's just it's an offshoot type, just a random kind of interview style or what, but
I'm looking that up as we speak. So sorry, we are filling a lot of time before Conrad comes on, and I apologize. This is probably going to be a little longer live section than we normally do, but this is just us having fun, talking, hanging out with each other, hanging out with y'all, making sure everybody's okay. Because last time we talked to y'all, we were up till 2:00 in the morning.
That's true.
Yeah, with the election.
Yeah,
I hear words, but no idea what they mean.
What?
Vance Coat from Vance Refrigeration.
Vance Refrigeration. Vance, are you not a wrestling fan? I thought you were for some reason.
I have Ice Spider on my ceiling right now. Speaking of ice spiders.
Wait. Carrie, can you elaborate what an ice spider is? Because I don't know what an ice spider is. Do you know what an ice spider is, Adam?
I do not.
Okay.
There's good. We can open up a Google machine.
Yeah, we can. Hey, Eric, by the way, text your boy and find out when he's coming. Please. I said please.
Ice Spider is it's a movie from 2007.
I have no idea what that is.
Probably not, but find out what he talks about.
Oh. Oh, man. You can't see much good beverage.
What is that? It's the Dew. It's got to be the Dew, right? Yeah.
It's a Mountain Dew Zero. Well, Vance, I appreciate that you're here to support us. Oh, wait, you're watching Dojo Pro. Well,
yeah, he's not talking about us.
I was on Dojo Pro, so.
You are?
Yeah, dude, I was in the crowd.
That's not really.
No. So it is because I was one of the guys that they were using to get the crowd chanting the right thing, and I was so loud that Logan said the guy doing the caption picked up on what I was chanting sometimes in some of the matches. So
you do have a very loud voice.
Yeah, Jeffrey, I was going to bring the Fiend up and let him show up, but the pop figure has yellow eyes, and so it didn't really work with my green screen. It kind of did the same thing my Mountain Dew did.
That's actually pretty cool.
I know, right? I could also show my my Star Wars.
Is that a Star Trek bomb?
Yeah, it's a Star Trek bomb. Yeah, see? Vance, very loud, or so loud, very recognizable.
and extremely
turbo.
Excellent. How about that?
Okay. Come on, dude. Come on, man.
So how about we start then? How about we start talking about some stuff and try to get Adam on board? Let's see. What?
Well, are we going to do this, or are we going to let Conrad do it all?
See, I'm trying to get him to. I texted him and said, "Hey, we're starting up. Just letting you know."
Yeah.
So we'll see what he says.
Okay. So
he was recording another podcast this morning, right at 8. So that's probably a little long.
So and that's the fact that we actually got Conrad, who not only has 5 podcasts, he runs a successful mortgage company here in Huntsville. So how the man has time to do anything, I'll never know.
Well, he didn't also just build a mortgage company here. He built a mortgage company all across the country.
Yeah. Well, it started here.
Yeah, but it started here. Yeah, but it's.
So Carrie spent all Alabama off weekend Saturday at my house this weekend.
And guess what, Adam?
Helping me decorate. What?
Guess what he did? That's what he actually did. It took him. It was sitting there when I moved in outside his house. He moved his mailbox and put a new mailbox up.
Hey,
about time, right? After about 3 months.
I'm surprised it wasn't rusted.
It was fun. So I got up on the roof and was going to put lights on the outside of my house. And I said, all right, Carrie, you come up with me and help me put lights in the house. He said, no. He got 3 rungs up the ladder and started shaking, like physically shaking.
Yeah, but then you can't mess with him and his vertigo. Like,
oh, I know. I forgot all about it.
Like you can't. He doesn't like heights, and he's a
huge roller coaster fan.
Which he knows there's safety there. I guess is the biggest thing there. But
there was safety on my roof.
Yeah, but
I was there. Yeah, I know.
You couldn't catch a cold, much less carry.
But I was a catcher and pitcher. Thank you very much. But
this is
at the same time, that's impressive.
Wow. It's a 230-pound man falling on top of you.
I will say, Carrie did a very impressive job wrapping garland around my front porch. Well, I'm on the roof putting icicle lights on my gutters. And then Amanda did a great job decorating the inside of my house. So my house is now Christmas decorated.
And did Amanda do a good job going out and fixing the decorations on the outside to her specs?
No, she actually didn't have to. She said it was great.
Very nice.
Unless you ride unless you ride the ones at Universal, that one was done for 2-year-olds. That's Flight of the Hippogriff, right?
The one at Universal?
Roller coaster.
Oh, they have a ton of roller coasters at Universal.
For 2-year-olds, that's Flight of the Hippogriff.
Oh, that's a Woody Woodpecker.
Oh, I hadn't ever ridden that one.
Yeah, that's because it's for 2-year-olds.
Oh yeah, actually,
I don't think you would fit in that one.
I did ride it because Ellie wasn't tall enough to ride it by herself.
The little red one that's over by Curious George.
Yep, I did ride it. It was
Hippogriff is like just a step above, just barely.
Yeah. So the one so that is Universal's answer to Goofy's Barnstormer.
The Great Goofini.
It's the Barnstormer.
The Great Goofini.
Okay. Oh, and Carrie says he's ridden the Woodpecker.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. Carrie's. Never mind. I'm leaving that one alone. I had to. Carrie put it on the tee, and I just said, "Hello."
You didn't have to go there.
I did. I did have to go there. I did.
Oh man, you didn't have to go there. This is a family-friendly show.
I know. How's Florida been, Adam? I hadn't talked to you. You and I really hadn't talked that much in the last couple of days.
Not really. It's good. We may or may not dodge a bullet with a storm. If anything, it'll just be windy and rainy. My main concern with the storm is they're supposed to do the next manned SpaceX launch on Saturday.
And that's not happening.
Yeah, not if it gets any closer. But want to see that go off. So I hope that hope it pushes a little bit more to the west. But
it's good. We'll live with us.
Whoa, Carrie. Y'all, if you're waiting for us and waiting for Conrad, John Rogers does have his Travel Tip Tuesdays, but while it's a great show, it's probably not near as fun as ours. So anyway, so the SpaceX launch,
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens on Saturday. The model had it going a lot further to the west, but it's starting to trend east, which is just not good for it.
Yeah.
I mean, the weather is not going to get bad or anything. I'm not concerned about that. It's literally just, I want to get this rocket off the ground. I want to see it. So.
Yeah. And we've got, 20-something days left in hurricane season?
20 on the nose.
Yeah. Yeah. Vance Cope says Edda is the most. It's not Edda, though, is it? It is.
Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
ETA, estimate time of arrival.
Thank you. But the most confusing storm ever. It's the name explains the arrival time.
Yeah.
All right. So, Adam, I know what it is. I think Carrie wants to know.
Yeah. That is the Las Vegas. It's now the Aviators. Their previous name was the 51s. And so I had a chance to go to a game out there, watch a lady get killed by a foul ball. It was a lot of fun.
And this is why he is now a fan of the
Nets.
The Nets all across.
Put them all the way down, man. All the way down. That was bad. Yeah. But no, that was
for real. Like for real, get killed.
So yeah, me and my buddy from work were sitting down probably 4 rows up, and we were right at the edge of where the pole was holding the backstop net, and hit a foul ball. And I heard the hiss of it go by us, and a lady was sitting there eating, and she looked up and it hit her right square in the forehead. Knocked her out cold. We don't know if she made it or not. I mean, nobody knows. But the part about it was like the whole place goes silent, right? And everybody's just kind of in shock. And her friend looks up and screams, "Is anybody going to get help?" And it was just like mass chaos after that. It was crazy.
Wow. Didn't a kid die at Texas Stadium?
I think so. And that's why they
fell over. They fell over trying to catch a ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was something like that. Yeah, it's crazy. So, all right, for those that have joined us, we are vamping. Sorry, we are waiting for our special guest host. Or guest, not host, guest. Yes, that's the one.
Yes, yeah. That's the one.
Yeah, Conrad Thompson.
Is it a work or a what was it?
Work or shoot.
A smoothie?
Are we working ourselves into a shoot, brother? Also, do we need to teach him the word mark?
I know about mark.
What is mark?
I don't remember, but you have used that before.
Yes.
I know what it means in terms of like a con, like it's the person that you fool in a con. So I'd imagine it's all along the same lines.
That's okay. Yeah. No, he is right. That is a mark. But then you and I are smarks.
We're smart marks.
Smart marks.
You know it's not real.
Right.
Is that what a smark is?
But we choose.
So a mark believes that what? It's
no, a mark is someone who knows his fate but still geeks out for it. Like, like geeking out about something, like marking out. That's kind of what they use.
But smarks are like, we know it's. All right, Carrie.
We think we know more than we know.
Yeah. Carrie can tell you this. I watched AEW's main event for Full Gear this week. It was a hardcore match. They're wrapping barbed wire around their wrists and hitting people with the barbed wire. And wait a second. I have to say this. Reading closed captioning on this podcast is hilarious.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. Hey, you should tell them about some of my text messages from going to Kentucky and back because none of them made sense.
None of them made sense.
It's scary. I guarantee you it's me. It's not either of these guys. It's all me. You can't understand a single word I say on closed caption.
But anyway, back to they're wrapping barbed wire around their wrists and hitting people with the barbed wire, and they're pouring what they call peroxide on open wounds. And I said, Carrie, that's working barbed wire. And that's probably water and not peroxide. I said, shut up, Smark. It's
no, more than likely it's probably real barbed wire and water, but probably real barbed wire.
You think it's real barbed wire? Because the way they were wrapping it, and they got an up close look at it, and to me, it did not look like barbed wire.
Hey, Turbo, let me see that cup again, man.
Nice. What's in yours?
Water.
It's
not peroxide. It's just
not peroxide. That's like
Mountain Dew Zero. Like it's in nothing. That's what that is.
It's in nothing.
Mountain Zero.
I'm not even drinking bourbon tonight. I mean, come on, guys.
Well, how do we know? We can't see what's in the bottle. That whole thing could be full of it.
Bingo.
Why aren't you drinking bourbon? It's a holiday.
No, I have to work tomorrow.
Oh, okay, that's right. But you do it every other Tuesday night.
I do, but no telling how long Conrad's going to go.
No telling how long it's going to get when he gets here.
Yeah, I know. Oh, crud. My computer just went blank.
We still see you.
Okay, I'm back. Yeah, my uncle. It is real. I am a smart. So what? Have you gotten a hold of him yet, Turbo?
He hasn't texted me back.
He got a hold to him yet?
You got a hold of him?
I mean, he's getting my text.
Is he? It doesn't say read or read.
It says delivered.
Oh, he's got you on delivered. Oh.
What does that mean?
So some people have it on read receipt, where it'll say if they've read it or if it's just delivered.
Oh, I don't know how to set that. I'm technologically declined. As you would say.
I know, and you're in charge of Hondas or Mazdas and Toyotas, and you're going to be making a car for my new favorite NASCAR driver. So,
but there's a difference in this. Does not. I'm not in production. I'm not in broadcasting. I'm not in anything like that. So.
The Podfather has joined us.
Oh, is he here finally?
The Podfather is here.
It's about time. I've been texting you.
I'm busy, dude. What the fuck?
Oh,
Conrad.
Your sound's like your sound's off.
Okay.
Like bad. You're echoing. Oh, there you
Dave's
go.
frozen. What is going on?
Yeah, it went to my webcam mic. This stupid amateur app you guys use went to my webcam mic.
Hey man, we are we're not professionals like you are. We don't do this every day of the week like you do.
No,
literally every day of the week.
Yeah, literally 7 days a week. But I'm glad to be here with you guys. Sorry I'm late. I was told I would be done by 8:30. You can see I'm done at 9:04. So my apologies.
Nice.
Hey, we got through it. We delayed enough. We did a lot of time. We eat up 30 minutes, so we're good. You're okay. So how you been, man? Everything going good?
Good, man. Busy but good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Kid. How's Kansas?
Oh, she's great. She's great. 16 years old now. Hard to believe. Where's the time go?
Good grief.
Oh, it's insane, man. Because I remember when she was little, running around.
I think you met her when she was 3. So
yeah.
I can't believe I've known your sorry ass 13 years. That's really
Language, Conrad, family friendly.
oh,
See, I told you he comes out swinging off the bat. See, I told you, come out swinging.
We appreciate you having been on with us, Conrad. It's I know you're a busy man, and it's with 5 podcasts. I don't know how you do it. So,
yeah, man, it's fun though. The old cliche of if you love your job, you never work a day in your life. It's true. I love doing mortgages and helping people become homeowners and save a bunch of money. But dude, I get paid to talk about old wrestling. How do you beat that?
There's no way for me to beat it. So, all right. So, Conrad, what we're going to do, we're going to start. We've been doing the live show for a couple minutes. And what we're going to do is I'm going to count us in. I'll do my little intro thing. And then if you don't mind, for the first half of the show, I just want to interview.
Speaking of, by the way, Conrad, this is Dave.
Oh, hi.
David Adams. And this is Adam Russell.
How's it going, man?
Good
so, figured I'd just introduce you.
Yeah. For the first half of the show, I just want to interview you, get your story, your beginnings from Guntersville to where you are now, what got you into podcasting, and now being at one of the most recognizable names in wrestling. I mean, I know you don't like hearing that, but you are. And then the second half of the show, we have one of our members who is I wouldn't say he's anti-wrestling, but he's not a wrestling fan. Adam laughs at me every time I talk about wrestling and everything. And I would like for you, and Eric and I to try to figure out a way to get him at least semi-interested in wrestling. And I know you're probably the man for it because you know all the ins and outs of the history of wrestling. So we're going to give it our best shot. How's that?
That's a tall ask to try to sell a guy who's not a wrestling fan on being a wrestling fan, but I'll take my best stab at it, I guess.
Well, I know you have some way to talk him into it. We hope.
Stab at it.
Okay, that works. All right. You ready? You ready, Adam? We got recording?
Yeah, let's do it. Yep.
All right. We're going to do this in 3, 2, 1. And welcome back into another wonderful episode of Unrelated at Birth. And this week is a doozy, guys. But before we get into everything we've got, I am, as always, the one, the only, the golden voice of the South, the human jukebox, Dave Adams, all the way from the top of the state of Alabama in Madison, Alabama, in the one and only Unrelated at Birth podcast studio. And as always, I brought along my friend, and I might have a couple other people around today too. I have from the House of Mouse, Central Florida, St. Cloud, wherever you are this week, in the Southern Command of the Unrelated at Birth studio, Adam Russell, the phenomenal brother. What's going on, man?
And where I always do I move around more than I think?
Well, you were outside last week. So.
Oh, I was outside last week. That's true because the weather was so nice, but not now. Thanks to Ida, whatever you call it, ETA. Yeah,
Turbo. I didn't bring you in yet.
God, man, come on.
You know
how particular he is. Yeah, Turbo. Who brought him on the show?
Look. He got our guest of the week, so I guess I have to be nice to him.
All right.
Everybody knows Luke Bryan, Eric Terry, Turbo. Why do we call you Luke Bryan again?
It's this smooth, sultry Southern sound.
No.
No, it's one guy. One guy said it and it stuck, and it got a comment on iTunes. That's all I can say.
Oh, okay. I got it. This for those that are watching our live feed. Brad Toon just has the greatest quote. Now you know we're in trouble when Dave is the one giving reminders to keep it family friendly.
That's true.
We're in trouble. All right, Eric, bring in our guest. He's your friend. Hopefully, he'll be everybody's friend by the end of the show.
All right, guys. So today we have Conrad Thompson, who is synonymous throughout the whole wrestling world right now. He's one of the hottest topics going on. He's a podcast host to 6 different, or multiple podcasts with some of the wrestling greats from the past, present, and future. So here he is, Conrad Thompson.
I don't get the Luke Bryan moniker. You look like Luke Bryan.
And he comes out swinging, like I always said. Out swinging.
So if you
and I've known Conrad for 12, 13 years. And, back when we were watching UFC pay-per-views, I met him through my roommate, who was his best friend from Gunnersville. And just, you know.
So Conrad, walk us through something, man. Your story, it intrigues me because you grew up just like normal wrestling fans, but now you are, like Eric said, synonymous in the wrestling game. So first off, how did you talk to us about how you got into wrestling?
My parents, like a lot of parents in the 80s, took to a video store, and that was going to be our babysitter for the weekend. And they decided to rent me the double tape VHS because they could use it as a babysitter twice as long of Wrestlemania 4. I was enamored with these larger than life characters and quickly fell in love with wrestling and just been a wrestling fan ever since. And like everybody, I guess I sort of grew out of it, and my fandom waned, and I was done by 92. But then I'm flipping through the channels in late 96, see Hulk Hogan, my icon, my hero, standing there in black. And I thought, what in the world is this? It was the NWO. And before I knew it, I was all the way back in. I watched pretty religiously for about 10 years. And then in 2006, got out of wrestling. And then I bought a Ric Flair robe on eBay in 2013 and found myself all the way back in. And fast forward to 2015. And I had befriended Ric Flair, I guess, in 13. And he had an opportunity to do a podcast, knew that I did a little bit of radio advertising for my mortgage company, and asked me to come in for the first episode and ask fan questions. And at the end, he dug it and CBS dug it, and they asked me to come back. And I became an accidental podcaster. So it wasn't my plan to become a podcaster, but I wound up having fun and made some money, and now I don't just have one, I have 5, and I'm still doing it. So here we are.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, Ric Flair was your first podcast, I guess, your first soiree into the game. How did that happen? Because when you first started it, podcasting was in its infancy. Did y'all have to be in the same room at the time? How did that really work to get it situated?
Flair's old school. He doesn't own a computer. He doesn't want a computer or learn how to computer. That's the way he talks about it. They set him up. CBS worked through his agent. They did a podcast contract through their Play.it platform, which is a CBS radio initiative. And they had studios in downtown Atlanta. So once a week he would cruise over there, and he invited me to come over, and that's how we started it. And then eventually, instead of, flying or driving back and forth to Atlanta every week, I don't think I ever drove it though. I think I always flew because it's like a 22-minute flight. I just said, hey, you know what? I can't make it this week. I've got to, be here for my real job. And they said, well, hey, could you Skype? So sure. I became a Skype podcaster, and that sort of became the new way. And he would continue to go in to the studio for a few months. And then eventually we figured out how to put Skype on his phone. And, well, if you were listening back then, you heard he was really interested at first, and then not so much.
It got long and drawn, and he hit or miss on some episodes.
Well, so Flair kind of brought into Bruce Pritchard, and for a lot of wrestling fans, they did not know who Bruce Pritchard was until you came along and brought him back into the wrestling game. Talk about Something to Wrestle and how, first off, let me ask you, is it something to wrestle with or just something to wrestle with Bruce Pritchard?
As long as there's one with, we're good. It's Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. But yeah, we met everybody through doing the Flair pod. So at different times we had Jim Ross, and we had Eric Bischoff, and we had Tony Schiavone, and we had Bruce Pritchard as guests. So I became familiar with those guys. And then, I hosted Bruce here at my house one weekend, and we just hung out and got to know each other and watched some football together and watched the UFC together. And we started to bounce ideas around, and I came up with some fun marketing campaigns. He obviously did a lot of television production over the years, and we started working together and did some very successful mortgage campaigns. And after one of those long days where we were shooting outside in August, or maybe it wasn't, I guess it was July, I pressed him and said, I'm not pressed. I guess I just casually said, hey man, what happened when, and I asked him about the Radicals when they jumped from WCW to the WWF. Well, he told me the story, but the whole course of the story, with me asking little questions along the way, was more than an hour. And I was just fascinated with it. And at the end I said, dude, that's a podcast. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, this is what a podcast should be. Not the interview format that everybody's been doing with guests, just one topic in long form. What we just did on this couch, every wrestling fan would love to hear. But he had tried a podcast years before and said, nobody wants to hear from me. There's no money in it. You can't get guests. I'm like, no. I've got this figured out. I know how to do it. We've just got to get your story out there. I'm telling you, this will work. And a few episodes in, after I did convince him to do it, and we got a deal worked out with MLW to help distribute it through Audio Boom. Fast forward, and we do the Radicals episode, and it was our first hit. The very first story that he told me on the couch that made me convinced this would be a hit. Did phenomenal downloads, so many that we thought that can't be right. There's an error in the software. And fast forward a few months, and I reached out to a major player, sent them screenshots of our stats, and within 5 business days of doing that, we had a contract with a guarantee and a huge signing bonus. And all of a sudden, we became a big deal in wrestling podcasts.
Well, before we get into other stuff, I want to ask. I
got one thing.
Come on.
Hang on. You talked about Bruce staying with you. So is that where and who came up with Conrad Thompson?
No, it was a friend from Nashville.
Okay.
All right, so let's fast forward a bit. Do you take credit for Bruce getting back into good graces with Vince?
I don't know that he was ever out of good graces with Vince. I mean, they always had a good conversation, a good relationship, happy birthday, Merry Christmas, all that type of stuff. But there's no question that Bruce Pritchard is back a part of WWE because of the success of Something to Wrestle. I mean, he was all the way out of wrestling. But that show got him back into Impact. It got him into MLW, and it got him into WWE. Bruce Pritchard was a non-starter in the wrestling business. His name was not discussed. He was wrestling was done with him, and he was done with wrestling. But he started having more fun and making more money than ever before through the podcast. That it actually took a little bit of convincing from Vince to get Bruce to come back, because he made more money with Something to Wrestle that last year. We were just solo, no WWE affiliation, than he ever had when he was working for Vince the first time. And this way he was, floating around his pool and talking to me for 3 hours. And that's it. It was going to take quite a commitment to move and be on a commercial airplane 5 days a week, but magically Vince found the right number and off he went.
And so it's weird. So weird to hear. It was so weird. Like, so I listened to Dusty. The Dusty episode is probably my favorite, one of the first ones you guys did. But it's so weird to hear your voice on a long form podcast with Bruce Pritchard. It was just weird at the time, because it was like, I know he had this with Flair, now he's with Bruce, and then they're talking about this, and just your knowledge. I forgot how knowledgeable you were, and like, because we used to sit around and talk about wrestling, talk about UFC, talk about all that, the movies and everything in that little bit of your room. Little movie room that you guys had, that you had at your old house, like 3 houses ago, that we hung the TVs up in, and just to hear you talking about that stuff on a long form podcast and be like as widespread as it was and how famous it got, like that was just it was mind blowing to me. It was just so great, and I found myself listening to it all the time. Like now his voice is more annoying to me now.
Well, let me ask you this, and you can decline to answer because I don't know if this would hurt or anything, but two questions. Do you find it hard to do the podcast now because Bruce might be a little bit not forthcoming with information because he is back behind the scenes? No, I'm not talking about current stuff. I'm talking about old stuff. Everybody got their narrative, but I mean, the reality is, we took a monster dump on TNA, not once but twice, and then they hired him and gave him an authority figure on the TV. He was, when you go back and you listen to even the very beginning of Something to Wrestle, Bruce was not ever overly critical of Vince McMahon. That never changed. He may have been critical of some of the decisions that were made, but you have to appreciate when he would dig his heels in, he wasn't defending Vince. He was defending his own idea. Most of those ideas, he was in the room. Maybe he wasn't his original idea, but he was there when they were formed. And it's one of those deals where, we can beat each other up in this room, but when we walk out of here, we've got to be a united front. Anyone who's been in a leadership position knows that that's the case. So he would defend some of those ideas because he had to sell himself on it before he could sell other people. But he can still, to this day, poke fun at stuff. I mean, just last week when we're talking about Bundy, we talked about stinker matches, and he couldn't wait to say it was horrible. And he used some rather colorful language when he was explaining how horrible it was. So no, that has not changed. But I understand that the WWE haters out there have a narrative they want to push that, oh, well, Bruce is back there, so of course he has to defend everything. Buddy, we ain't talking about Bray Wyatt or Alexa Bliss at all, ever. So there's nothing for him to defend. We're doing the same stuff we were doing, 2 years ago. But some folks just think, well, no, it's not the same for me because I know he works there. Well, that's on you. That's not on us.
and that's why. Gimmicks, right? The box of gimmicks. Yeah. That proves the point right there. He makes fun of his own gimmicks that he made up. I mean, he gets on it's on himself and makes fun of himself. Of course, you give him a harder time with some of those bad gimmicks back in the day. But I mean, that's the proof of the pudding where he makes fun of himself.
And that's why I brought it up, because I know that there is a group of fans, I put fans in quotation marks, that like to crap on your product now because of where Bruce is working again. But I don't think it's changed any. And I love the fact that what's going on still. So is Conrad frozen? I can't tell. Oh, nope. You just have this stare, Conrad. It's scary.
Well, I didn't think there was anything for me to say there. I'm sorry.
No, all good, sir. All good. Let me, and this will kind of move into the other podcast you have. Tell me if I'm wrong in thinking this way, but I've noticed that when someone else when someone in WWE has an affiliation with someone else in another arena, another league, another promotion, that person in WWE kind of gets a little bit of a D push or gets a little bit of crap heat in the back. Have you noticed any heat on you or any heat on Bruce because of your affiliation with AEW or your affiliation with Arn or JR or anything like that?
No heat.
That's awesome. By the way, Adam, we will describe what heat is on the next segment.
Thanks.
Yeah, speaking of all the terms, he has no idea.
Heat just way over. Yeah, I don't get heat.
That's going to be the fun part, Conrad. So, you have 5 podcasts. I have to ask, what's your favorite?
Well, that's like asking who your favorite kid is. I enjoy them all for different reasons. Bruce Pritchard is the one that sort of put us on the map, and he and I have such a chemistry and camaraderie together because there for a while when we were doing all the mortgage production, he would be here for a week a month. So you can't spend 13 weeks a year with somebody and then travel the world with them and go to Europe with them and not be able to finish each other's sentences. And so when we're doing the show on video and I can see him and he can see me, we just get tickled just looking at each other because we know what the other one's thinking. And that level of chemistry doesn't exist with any of my other co-hosts. The closest to it, though, is Tony Schiavone. And again, it's because we've just spent so much real life time together. And Tony Schiavone and Bruce Pritchard are both hilarious. Arn is hilarious in his own way, but he's very much coming into his own and sort of finding his groove in podcasting. He's a guy who's played everything very close to the vest with professional wrestling for so long. He's not quite as comfortable as the other two are just yet. Eric Bischoff is one of my more fun shows to do because we do get to talk about the more analytical business side of things. And that's the way my brain just normally works more. And Jim Ross is just a freaking legend. And he has such a strong opinion about everything, and he's not shy about sharing it. There's a lot of people who say that they're all out of blanks to give. Jim Ross is the definition of that. He ain't had any in a long time. So it's fun to hear him get the red butt on the show.
Yeah. Eric, so with Bischoff, I know that with other podcasters he's worked with, they've had to walk on eggshells because there are things that he does not want to bring up and doesn't want to talk about. Have you had to walk on eggshells with Bischoff about WCW, about the fall of WCW, about anything like that?
I'm sorry, say again.
Have you had to walk on eggshells with Eric Bischoff about the questions you ask or how you ask them? Because like I've known with other podcasters in the past, Bischoff has not been the most forthcoming with information about WCW.
No, you haven't listened to enough of the shows. We've had knockdown, drag out, screaming matches at each other.
Yeah, they've gotten passionate. I've heard some of those.
Yeah,
and so point for heel, if I'm not mistaken, there's been several where Bischoff just turned the mic off and just like, oh yeah, it's not going anymore. And Carr have to convince him to come back on and call him a name and get him wound up and riled up and get him talking again.
Well, I've heard that, but I thought that was just y'all being funny. So that really is Eric getting mad.
That's working that's the definition of working yourself into a shoot, Adam. Take note.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Here's the thing too, and Eric knows this in my real life. I, by nature, am going to pick and prod and poke. Like I am the ultimate jokester and ribber and button pusher. If you mess around and let me know you have a sensitive spot about something, you have messed up because I am going to push it and press it a lot. And now it's made even worse because now it's more entertaining radio if I can do it, which in turn makes us all more money. So if you actually open up and show me that something bothers you, I'm about to wear it out. And that's what I did with Eric, and it worked out, and it became our highest grossing show, even to this day. Something Wrestle still gets more downloads, but there's more revenue drug in on 83 weeks than any of the other pod.
I will say 83 weeks hooked me when it was the DX invades WCW episode. I guess that was episode 3. It hooked me when it was daytime, Eric. It was day. You started yelling. It wasn't. There was a couple other words in there.
Yes,
but but it was. That's what hooked me is that you keep it real and you don't sugarcoat anything.
And I think that's really the dynamic that has worked for our podcasts is that a lot of the other sort of celebrity driven podcasts, it's just the celebrity and no one there to challenge them. And they may have a co-host, but that person is a glad hander. That person is not on equal footing. And we approach the show totally differently in that, it's not Eric's show and I just happen to be there. It's our show, me and him. And I'm sort of driving the show and he's responding. And don't get me wrong, it's not lost on me why people are listening. They're listening to the Eric Bischoff show. And I'm proud to say it, which is why his name is in the title and not mine. I don't have my name in any of the shows. It's 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff. He's the draw. But we've got to be able to have a real conversation or else it just becomes a PR piece. And that's been done to death. So we've got to be on equal footing and I've got to have a voice. And it can't just be, I have to, yes, sir, no, sir, to everything. And people really gravitate to the stuff where I challenge them because at home they're wanting to do that, but they can't. So they get to live vicariously through me when I flip out on him.
Yeah. Did Eric realize that at first, or did you kind of have to say, look, man, I'm going to ruffle your feathers?
Yeah, I mean, he knew, but it still took a while for him to get comfortable with it because, he was trying to be, you listen to some of those early episodes and you'll hear him say, well, there's two questions there. I'll start with the first one first. He was almost giving like a deposition style answer. And I can appreciate that he's trying to be factual and just get the truth out there and all that jazz. But the reality was I'm trying to be entertaining. And so we did have to have a conversation where I said, I want you to listen to the Bruce Pritchard show. And he said, oh, I have. And that's what I'm trying to do. I said, but he admitted I'm not funny. I'm not going to be as witty or charming I'm just not funny. I can't even try to be funny. I said, okay, well, listen to some of the Tony Schiavone stuff. And he said, oh, that's even worse. I'm not funny. I can't do that. And I said, what I'm saying is we're trying to do whatever it takes to entertain the listener. So I don't need to give a 3-minute question and then get a yes or a no. I need you to make a pivot. And I gave an example like, hey, Bruce, on so-and-so day in Sandusky, Ohio, all of a sudden Owen Hart was on TV, but he was wearing brown boots. And it's the only time we ever saw him with brown boots. Did they lose his luggage? Was it a rib? What can you tell us? Now, and Bruce could have said, I don't know. And that would have been it. And now it's time to move on. But instead, Bruce would say something like, Conrad, I wasn't at that particular taping, but I will tell you this. Owen was a notorious ribber who was known for messing with guys' gear. And it wouldn't surprise me if they just told him that the airline lost it. And really it was in somebody else's trunk. And then they made him use someone else's boots, but they were boots that were going to be thrown out because they were so smelly. That's the type of prank that Owen would pull. And it wouldn't surprise me if that's what was happening here. Now that's a real answer that could be entertaining and insightful and engaging, or it could just be, I don't know. So you've got to understand just the dynamics of talk radio and how to sort of be verbose and not just give a freaking deposition. And that took a little while for Eric, but once he got it, I think he got it too much because sometimes I'll ask and I'll go make a sandwich, take a swing, still answer. I didn't miss anything. I can take the headsets off and come put them back on, and I didn't miss a thing. He's still going. So I need to reel him back in at some point, but we've got so many ads right now that I'm okay with him giving 30-minute answers. It gives me a spot to slide in more commercials.
There you go. That's great.
And you got to knock your door down for that, right?
Yeah, we're sold out in 3 weeks every single week. We've been very, very blessed with a great advertising base. Westwood One has been a phenomenal broadcast partner. I know that there's been a lot of podcasts in the wrestling genre that for whatever reason didn't work with Westwood. We've been blessed that we've had a great relationship and we've just renewed all of our contracts over there. Or I just got the renewals last week. So we're in the process of getting those executed and hope to be annoying people for a long time with I Hate Steven Singer commercials.
My absolute favorite ones that you do now is like the ones with Jericho. Like the episodes you do with Jericho, like him taking him through his time in the WWE, WWF, WCW, and all that. Like you step him through his career and hear him tell the stories. Like I'm a huge Jericho fan though too. But that's some of my favorite ones here lately. And
so let me ask you this: the Jericho is actually a good example of this. So I know after the 83 weeks where Bischoff was going through Jericho and how he let go of Jericho, Jericho asked you to come on his show and do the same type of show where Jericho told his side. Are there other wrestlers that have done that with you and said, "Hey, I want to tell my story. Come on my show and let's do this"?
No, I mean, I've done Conan's podcast a few times, and I mean, I guess I've done a few of them for sure, but I don't think there's been somebody who said, "Hey, can you bring your research and your preparation and let me just retort?" And I mean, that's only been Jericho, and I think we've done it 2 or 3 times now. But he told me at the time, it was some of his biggest downloaded stuff, which wasn't a surprise to me because what Jericho fans want to hear is about Jericho. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure they enjoy him talking about ghost hunting or music or talking to other wrestlers. But what they really want is for Chris Jericho to talk about Chris Jericho's career. So it was not a surprise to me that people who love Chris Jericho and listen to Chris Jericho's podcast want to hear Chris Jericho's story. So it was not a surprise to me at all that himself was one of his best topics. I was just the guy asking the questions, but they were tuning in for him.
Yeah, and some of the best stories that he tells on that podcast when he has a guest is their stories together. Like I just listened to one with Miro on it, and they were talking about back when Jericho was in WWE with Miro, talking about how they used to hang out and Lonnie used to throw back with them, and she'd be the last one to go to bed, and they just hang out drinking all night. Like that, those kind of stories. When he's talking about the stories that they had together, like those are the fun stories, and that's when I think he's really entertaining.
Yeah. By the way, those that don't know, Miro is former Rusev in WWE. Miro is now in AEW. Just clearing that up for those that aren't marks like me and Eric and Conrad. But anyway, so Conrad, what's next for you? I know you've got these 5. Is there anything else coming?
Yeah, adfreeshows.com. We've started to do ad-free versions of all of our shows, but we've really leveled it up and added a lot of new content. We've got Mailbag Mondays with Gerald Briscoe and Mike Chioda. We've got some fun behind the scenes mechanics of what works in a wrestling match and why it works with perhaps the most prolific trainer ever, Dr. Tom Pritchard. We've got some fun comedy stuff with Mance Warner, where he tries to explain silly wrestling to some of our wives that are not wrestling fans. We call that mansplaining. We've got On the Road Again, which is just a couple of GoPros hooked up to Tony Schiavone and Jim Ross as they make towns together and just have casual conversation about everything in between. But my proudest thing this year so far is we tracked down Jim Hurd, who is a notorious old school executive vice president of WCW. He ran the company from January of 89 through January of 92. And there was a lot of good, bad, and the ugly there. And the narrative on him has been mostly negative. And I didn't know that it was completely fair. But I think part of that is because we just haven't heard from him. His last interview was with Dave Meltzer in March of 2001. So to hear his side of things objectively from an 88-year-old man's perspective, who's still very mentally sharp, it was pretty remarkable. And we're really proud of it. It's the first time we've done something like this. It's not just audio, it's video. We shot it in 4K. We've got the actual big gold belt that he made famous in the background. We've got the belt that replaced it. And I came in with tons and tons of research. It's about an hour and 42 minutes of inside baseball that if you're an old school wrestling fan who remembers Rick Steiner or the Great Muta or Big Van Vader, it's going to be right up your alley. And that's all at adfreeshows.com. I do think video is the next sort of foray. We're going to start doing video versions of all of our podcasts. I've got a few more video series coming, including a belt series that I think will be a tremendous hit. And we're just trying to make adfreeshows.com sort of the one-stop shop for all wrestling fans. In a perfect world, I would think in a few years, all wrestling fans would have a subscription to the WWE Network, a subscription to the Wrestling Observer, and a subscription to adfreeshows.com. And I think if you've got those 3, you've got all the audio and video content you need and all the news that's fit to print over at the Observer.
So that brings up another question that I want to ask that I've been dying to ask you, actually. You've talked about how as a 15-year-old kid, you subscribed to the Observer, Dave Meltzer and all them over there at the Observer. Every one of your shows craps on Dave Meltzer. So is Meltzer right, or is Meltzer mostly just thinking about what he's doing? Is he kind of just this is where I think things are going?
They don't all crap on him. That's just the narrative that you remember from 2 of the hosts, Bruce and Eric. Well, I understand that everybody has their own agenda, but if you're looking for an industry trade, if you're looking for an independent source who has been a week in, week out, pardon the pun, observer of the business, and you're looking for some historical artifact to go reference for research now. For instance, when I did the research because I had a team help me, did the research for Jim Hurd, where could I go find that? There's no Jim Hurd book. There's no Jim Hurd autobiography. He did one radio interview that anybody ever heard that was of any substance. He had a couple other one-offs with John Arezzi, but those were really to plug his hotline and other promotions. But as far as, real hard-hitting stuff, the last time we heard from him were a handful of interviews in the early 90s, and then that interview with Dave in 2001. The only other place to go to get that information is the Observer. So I went to the Observer, and I went to Torch, and I went to Matt Watch, but Matt Watch, Steve Beverly's out of that game. And there's one, I guess there's two, if you count Wade, there's two industry trades that tell the story of the business, from the 80s to now. That's Dave Meltzer and Wade Keller. And of the two, one is Coke and one's Pepsi. And that's no disrespect to Wade Keller, but Dave Meltzer is the Coca-Cola brand of that. So if you're going to quote someone's news or opinion, like how many stars did Okada get from Wade Keller? Nobody knows, but they know exactly how many Dave Meltzer gave. So if he's sort of the brand that everybody's referencing, I don't know why I would quote anything else. There's no other industry guide that's published or present for me to research or tap into. So Dave is it. He is the foremost opinion in professional wrestling, but it is an opinion. That's the other thing that I think people get caught up on is, there's not I'm in the real estate business. So, when you do a home appraisal, you have a value, like a cost value, a cost approach. What would it cost to build this house? But then you've also got the comparable sales approach. Like, what are houses like this selling for? Well, a lot of that stuff is debatable. Like, it's not debatable how many square feet your house is. It's not debatable how many bedrooms and baths it is, but it is debatable how much the granite in your kitchen's worth. Like that's all subject to. So I think it's important to remember all of Dave Meltzer's opinions about wrestling are just that. It's just his opinion, and it's not worth getting that fired up about.
Well, can I ask you if, put on your Eric Bischoff, Bruce Pritchard hat for a second. Why do those two gentlemen not like Dave so much? Is it just because he's quote unquote giving the business away?
No, it's because they've reported stuff that's hurt their business. If there was someone who, I don't know what your real day job is, but let's pretend that there's someone who is making a living saying things about your business that sometimes are true, but sometimes are not, you probably wouldn't like them very much either.
That'd be the Russians.
Yeah, I work for Boeing, so
I can think of a few people.
Well, insert your own joke here.
Yeah. Come on, keep it nice, keep it non-political.
As long as it's in the Tokyo Dome, it's always 5 stars.
No, it's 10 stars now, isn't it?
It gives extra umph in the Tokyo Dome for Dave.
That is true. That is true. Conrad, have you ever been over to Japan to watch wrestling over there?
Yeah, I saw not this year's Wrestle Kingdom, but last year.
So last year, that was Alpha Omega, wasn't it?
That was Cody and the Bucks last one.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
that wasn't Alpha and Omega. That was the year before.
Okay. They're all running together now. COVID time is like 5 years in my mind. So, all right. So, Conrad, before we go into you explaining the wrestling business to Adam and trying to get him to decently at least be okay with it, tell us about just about First Family Mortgage, because that, while you are a great wrestling podcast guy, you're the Podfather for wrestling. Your first love is mortgage. So tell us about everything you do in Huntsville and around the country now.
Yeah, well, listen, we're happy to, and it's fun that you live in Madison because you've probably heard our radio commercials or seen us on TV for a long time. And
I've used you actually.
Appreciate that. We've been doing it for a long time. I've been doing mortgages on the Parkway here in South Huntsville since August of 2001. And eventually I got my whole family into it. My sister works as a closer now, and she prepares the closing documents. My mom helps with some of the accounting stuff. My dad originates loans. One of my cousins answers the phone. Another cousin originates loans. It really is First Family Mortgage, but we've got a whole team of other folks who work with us behind the scenes. And we're helping, hundreds of families every single month go ahead and consolidate their debt, pay off their house faster, reduce their term from a 30 down to a 15. And this time of year, people are still buying houses like crazy. So money's never been cheaper than it is right now. I've been doing this 19 years and I've never been able to offer the rates I can right now. So your dollar goes a lot further. So if you're thinking about upgrading or buying a new house, now's the time to do it. If you're thinking about pulling some cash out to pay off some credit card debt or maybe upgrade some kitchens and bathroom, now's the time to do it. And we can make it happen with no money out of pocket. There's no cost or obligation over at savewithconrad.com.
Not gonna lie, it's kind of cool to have a First Family Mortgage ad on my podcast.
Yeah,
how many times have you said that though? Like you just spit it off perfect with nothing to read. Like that's how many times have you said that?
A lot. He's heard it on the radio forever, and it was a little weird to start that way, to not start with, hey, it's Conrad Thompson with First Family Mortgage, and launch into the pitch. But yeah, I don't have to read anything anymore. I can just right off the top of my head.
Where did the hey come from?
My grandmother used to keep old folks. She was one of the first folks in Alabama to have what's called a domiciliary. It's sort of the in-between where maybe they can't stay by themselves anymore, but they're not quite yet ready to go to a nursing home. So she would keep old folks. And so I grew up around old people and learned to play cards and knit and checkers and chess and lots of stuff from old people as a little kid. And one of the old ladies that we really, really liked a lot that I became close with eventually started to slip away a little bit mentally. And she would greet every woman that came into the room with, hey, hey. And it started with, hey, and then I would say, hey, and then she would say, hey, hey, and it became a thing. And so it became a thing through my whole family. Like even to this day, when my mom comes to my house or I go to her house, we announce ourselves with, hey, hey. And, I was looking for the wrestling fan in me. I needed a gimmick. So I thought I'm going to start my ads with a gimmick and I want to end with a gimmick. And I didn't have like a number that spelled anything. Back in the day, you got to remember people used to say things like, call 582-SAVE or 512-LOAN or something like that. Well, I didn't have a number like that. So I said, okay, I've got to say the number a certain way every single time. That'll be my gimmick to close because I want that to be the last thing they hear is the phone number. But to open and introduce myself, I need a gimmick to get started so they know, hey, this is him. But I didn't want to invest in a jingle and have a music bed underneath me. I wanted my commercial to be the only thing on the radio that had no music behind it, so it would stand out. And so some people would be critical of the ad and they would say, oh, it's not produced enough. It doesn't sound polished. And my thing was, it sounds real. It sounds like I'm talking to you one-on-one in your car, having a conversation. Because when you're talking to your friend, there's usually not a soundtrack in the background. So I just started with, hey, hey, it's Conrad Thompson. And I finished with 425-0105. And I said that enough to where then, in real life, people would, even when I meet people at Rosie's for the first time and they're like, are you? And I'll say, hey, hey, it's Conrad Thompson. So it works.
Pretty good.
That's awesome.
And if you ever drive in Alabama, you will hear the conversation.
Oh, gosh.
You'll hear the Conrad Thompson every time. And you hear it on every radio station just about, well, it's all Cumulus Radio, right? Basically. Is it Cumulus Radio still? Is that what it is, Huntsville now?
Yeah. Cumulus and iHeart are the two big clusters here in America. And, of course, Cumulus is part of the Westwood One force globally. Cumulus is their American radio arm. And it's kind of cool because, I'm advertising with Cumulus and all of my podcasts are also hosted by Cumulus, Westwood One.
Well, there you go. Do you still have to pay the ad revenue, or since you're on there, do you say, hey, part of my deal, I want this much airtime for my commercial?
Yeah, I do negotiate commercials as part of my contract with Westwood, but it's commercials to promote the podcast. I keep them separate. I make more than I pay them, so I'm coming out ahead. I don't want to make
Hey, you're the one that's negotiating. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, Conrad. Now we have the tall ask. I've known Adam for 20 years, and I've been a wrestling fan since the dawn of Monday Nitro. 95 was when I got really into it. And then I became a huge fan watching all the history and stuff in the back, in the rears. And I met Adam in 99, 2000 at Alabama. And he's always scoffed at me for liking wrestling. Even though he's a NASCAR fan, which NASCAR and wrestling kind of go hand in hand. Don't give me that look, Adam. Don't give me that look.
That's an interesting take. We'll talk that in another episode. Continue. That's
okay.
Okay.
He's always said that wrestling is a male soap opera and childish, I guess, is his.
I've never said childish.
Well, you've had the thought.
Let's not go too far here.
This is what you call childish. All these right here. These are not toys.
They're collectibles.
They're collectibles.
All three of us have a shelf somewhere with the same thing, so I've got nothing on you guys there.
Yeah, exactly.
What's that in the far corner back there? Is that your Star Trek uniform?
Over here?
Yeah, Star Trek
Stormtrooper. Yeah.
Anyway, so Conrad, how would you try to get Adam to like wrestling? Keep in mind he's an engineer who works at Disney. So how would you talk him into liking it and sit him down and explain a show to him?
Well, I don't think you can talk him into it. I think you've just got to show it to him. I think you should show him Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero from Halloween Havoc 97 and just see what.
That's the Phantom. That's the Phantom.
Yeah, but the deal is, I'm
taking notes.
He's not wrong if he says that wrestling is a male soap opera. It 100% is. We shouldn't deny that it's anything different, but that doesn't mean that it's not good. And it always used to make me chuckle when people would say, "Oh, well, wrestling's fake. Oh, so Iron Man's for real, huh?" Like, come on, it's entertainment. Let's have a little bit of understanding that they're trying to just entertain us. But I think you could show him that match, or you could probably also show him Hell in a Cell from 1997 with Shawn Michaels and the Undertaker, or maybe Hell in a Cell with Undertaker and Foley at King of the Ring 98. Or maybe you could show him Terry Funk and Ric Flair from New York Knockout in December of '89. But maybe, he would like the Stone Cold Bret Hart match from WrestleMania 13. I think if you could show him 2 or 3 of those matches, maybe he wouldn't necessarily come away a wrestling fan, but he would just look at you and say, "Okay, I get it." Because here's
we should throw in some Sable.
No,
not the match. None of the matches.
No.
No.
Here's the thing. He can find better than that with a quick Google search.
You're right. You got a point.
Yeah.
So here's my mistake. A couple years, that's about 1.5 years ago when I was down there, before Bray Wyatt came out as the Fiend, when we were really in the Firefly Funhouse era, I showed him back to back about 2 or 3 episodes of Firefly Funhouse.
That was a mistake.
That was a mistake, you say?
Yeah.
He walked away and looked at me and said, "What did I just watch?"
Yeah. I feel like it sounds like the older stuff is what's going to make someone interested. Because I got to say, I've tried a couple of times recently. I'll turn it on. You're like, "Oh, we're watching this," and I'll have it on, and I'm just like, "Oh, can't quite get there." But the athleticism does impress me. I have to say that much.
Well, I mean,
what they're able to pull off and not die, that is impressive. I'll give them absolute credit for that. I think one of the things we and Dave have gone back and forth on a few times, though, is I understand having a Hall of Fame because not everybody can jump off of a top rope, execute a move, land in the right spot, not to hurt the other person and all that stuff. But to have someone in the Hall of Fame, and I think Dave used the justification because of how many titles they've won. It's like those titles were written into a story. That's like having Stefano in a Days of Our Lives Hall of Fame because he has the highest body count in Days of Our Lives, right? And those are the kind of like fringe conversations that Dave and I have had over the last few years where I don't scoff per se, I chuckle.
But think
is
about
the word that I'll use.
Think about promotions and raises, right?
What's that?
Think of it as promotions and raises.
No, I totally understand. You have characters who can pull it off and are really popular and characters who aren't. But to quote stats to me, like you did that one time, Dave, when we were talking around, this guy's a 9-time champion. It's like, well, yeah, okay. Yeah. So you're saying to me then what you would say the 9-time champion is like being a vice president of a company. Is that promotion and raise thing, Turbo?
No, it's revenue based. So, if you had someone who, let's say the Rolling Stones, if it's silly to say Ric Flair should be in the Hall of Fame because he's a 16-time champion, it's also silly to say the Rolling Stones should be in because they won X number of Grammys.
Yeah.
Because there's a decision-making committee that decides who should be champion. just like there's a decision-making committee who decides who had the best album of the year. So if wrestling titles are make-believe, so are Grammys, so are Oscars, so is the Electoral College.
But isn't that one person though that really makes the distinction on who gets that title? There's really one man, right?
No, now
one man says if he goes or not, right?
Okay, are you talking about ever or now? Because we're talking about two different things. Flair won it when there was an NWA committee.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. I'm talking about now. I'm talking with the WWF, WWE. That's what I'm talking about.
All right, then here's your other analogy. Then, if you're talking about modern wrestling, it's based on revenue. So if this is one of the best movies of all time because it sold the most tickets and created the most revenue, then this guy sold the most concerts, sold out the most venues from the musical side of things. So like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with K-pop or Korean pop that all the kids are into, but BTS had this big tour that they sold out like that. And they would announce stadium shows back to back because it sold out over and over. Those stats will be quoted one day when they go into this Hall of Fame, that they sold out this many venues, this many seats, this many tours, blah, blah, blah. Well, pro wrestling equivalent of that is the main event. And the main event is always what drew the house, what sold the tickets. If there's 10 matches on the card, most of the folks in that building didn't come to see the guy in the first match. They came to see the guy in the last match, just like in boxing or whatever. So those accolades, which while they may be decided upon by someone else, those guys are going to be the ones in the position to sell the most tickets. So on the one hand, I understand the criticism that they didn't actually win it, but they did actually sell all the tickets, and driving revenue in business is winning. So that's how they deserve the accolade.
Yeah, we've had the sport versus not conversation a lot too, right? And I'm not going to beat that horse right now. But
actually, hey, I want to hear Conrad's take on that.
Not a sport. That's it. The end of the conversation.
Okay.
So I think that's the problem, though. I think there's too vocal of a what's that?
Sports entertainment,
athletic entertainment.
No, well, I mean, what's the difference between sports entertainment and athletic entertainment? As long as the word entertainment's at the end, it doesn't matter. But the reality is, nobody could just crawl off a bar stool and go do it. There is a lot of athleticism involved.
Hey,
it's not curling or
in the 80s and 90s. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of that in the 80s and 90s. I mean, just ask Scott Hall. I mean, I'm sure he did a couple times.
Well, but to the sport point, I think that's the problem. Is there are a large vocal group of people that I've heard that say it is a sport. And so it's hard for, I think, the average lay person in wrestling to walk off the street, try to watch it, and separate that it's not a sport with the fact that you use championships and titles, and the nomenclature uses sport nomenclature. And so I think that's probably why people have a little bit of a problem, because they don't know it's revenue based. They don't understand that it's more like an entertainment industry like music. There's so many people out there saying it is a sport and it borrows so much from sports that maybe there's like a mental break people can't make to say, okay, I'm not going to view it as a sport. But when people are being told me by other people in the world, Dave, that it is a sport, I think that thread might be drawn a little too tight to separate the two. But that's just one person's opinion. I'm not saying it's good or it's bad. It's just that's where I was coming from. And that makes total sense, though. I had no idea about the committee and the revenue-based stuff. So that analogy does make sense.
So let me ask you this, Conrad. With AEW trying to do the whole records and rankings and all that, is that maybe hurting the business because they're trying to make it more like a sport?
No, it's a storytelling aid. You've got to have stakes. You've got to have we need to hear, one of the things they used to talk about in wrestling all the time in storytelling is, why does the guy want to be the champion? Well, they used to say he's going to get the winner's purse. And we're all familiar with that in the UFC, where you would have, $50,000 to show, $50,000 win bonus. So if you show up and have the fight, even if you lose, you make $50,000. But if you win an extra $50,000. Well, that's easy for people at home to sort of wrap their head around and reconcile. But how do you get to where you're actually competing for a title? Because we all have been led to believe that when you're the champ and you're headlining a show, you make more money. So if we're all still going to go into that with this line of thinking, in this pretend world, everyone's vying for this championship, then wins and losses should matter, because they're just like in college football, they're moving up the rankings or they're moving down the rankings. And if someone who was ranked ahead of them loses, even if you didn't have a match that week, you can move up like Alabama did this past week. But that is a storytelling device I don't think it's to confuse anyone in 2020 into believing that wrestling is real. I think it's just something that we can explain. Hey, this guy's ranked number 3 and this guy's ranked number 8. And if 8 beats 3, he can really move up closer towards a title shot, which is where everybody wants to be. So I understand that and think that that's the intent. I don't know that they convey that as well as they maybe originally hoped, because I don't think they've really pushed consistently the top 10 rankings. They have shown the records every week. And I think that's important, especially when you're trying to use it as a storytelling device, because a lot of times people will get a title shot and they'll think, well, this doesn't make any sense. Why would this guy get a title shot? But if you, in the 3 or 4 or 5 weeks prior to that, show them on a win streak, then you can say, hey, they started out with a slow start, but they've got the hot hand now. They've won 5 in a row. Let's see what they can do.
Yeah. I think, though, back to that point, for me, that would almost be a blocker, because if I the more it's doubled down on the sports aspect, I turn it on and he's number 5, he's number 3, he's number 1. It's all decided by a group of people in a room. Understanding why you guys like it, though, as a storytelling device, I think it makes sense. But to double down on the sports thing, to me, puts up a little bit more of a barrier to entry for someone who's brand new and has that kind of skeptical nature towards it.
You're right.
But I get it as a storytelling device. That side of it, I totally get why you guys like it. That it makes more sense to me now.
Yeah, me and the stormtrooper behind you agree.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's storytelling device. I'm with you.
It is.
I'm with you, but you don't turn on a star. I mean, it's like if we turned on Harry Potter in the Quidditch match, like really someone's going to be crowned a champion in real life. No, it's not, right? It's all just a story. I totally get it. I get what you're saying.
Real life, buddy, and there was no.
I know. I'm agreeing with you.
I'm just saying it's all to make people care, and because here's the thing: I have to ask myself a lot of times when it's just one guy wrestling another, why should I care about this match? And they don't always drill in on traditional wrestling shows. Well, they want to win because you make more money, and when you're talking about that in terms of, because you are trying to present this as a story of why do you want to be champion? Why do you want to have a good match? Whatever the case may be. I think it can add stuff. I don't think they're there yet. I mean, they've used some of it, but the top 10 thing I think could be utilized even bigger. I mean, and that's another thing that happened in WCW way back in the day where they would show the full top 10. And I thought it added a lot to the show.
So then in that top 10 scenario, is it something where if someone cultivates their character, they cultivate their story, they end up becoming popular, they're going to end up making their way up to number 1. Whereas somebody who doesn't convince the crowd as much, someone who doesn't have as solid of a character, can't pull it off as well, they're going to stay where they are or fall down. They're not going to get a title shot. Is that basically how you're saying it works?
So let me tell you this. So one of the best examples the opposite way was Kurt Hawkins a couple years ago, lost 200 straight matches, 200 straight in a row, and then came back and won at WrestleMania, won the tag titles with Zack Ryder. Like one of his first matches to win was for the belts, the tag team, Raw tag team belts. Like
it made it more interesting.
It made it a lot more interesting. Well, the thing about it was people got behind him, and he didn't even realize he was on that big losing streak until somebody said something to him. Like, and then they made it. That was one of the gimmicks. That made a gimmick. That made him popular. Like a lot of people get behind the underdog.
Sure. Yeah, I guess it's just. But when you say why would someone want to win a championship because you make more money, is what drives someone towards that number 1 spot. They're obviously not winning or losing, right? I mean, in a sports terminology, but they're winning or losing in the terms of conveying a story forward. So what decides in the background who wins and who loses? Part of it is story, obviously, but what's the main thing? Why does someone get a shot when another one may not?
Because the fans respond to it.
The fans, okay, yeah.
So the fans of the driver, if they're tuning in and ratings are good, or they're selling tickets, or they're selling merch, then that guy is over. So Darth Vader is over. Luke Skywalker is over. Boba Fett is over. That little stupid baby y'all like, it's over.
Yeah, hey, y'all is not part of this conversation. These two, maybe, not me. I've never seen Star Wars.
So it's almost like if your pole position at a NASCAR race was determined by how good your merchandise trailer did.
Yes.
Dale Jr. would always be in pole.
So NASCAR and wrestling, NASCAR and wrestling, right there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And for that matter, sports, the NBA decided LeBron was going to be the future, and they got behind him. And the NFL decided Mahomes is the future, and they got behind him. And so when you see, leagues endorse guys like that and really put their quote unquote machine behind him, doing the same thing that Vince McMahon and Don King and every promoter ever has done.
Sure.
But it can also work the opposite way, right, Conrad? Like Roman Reigns before they turned him heel, where the fans where Vince tried to push Roman and the fans kind of turned on him a little bit.
Well, but here's the thing. And I know, people are going to argue this, but let's just think through it. Was that the plan all along?
No. I think Roman Reigns sold merchandise. I was a huge Roman Reigns fan, and nobody else was.
Roman Reigns had the number one rating. He was number one in the ratings. His segment was every week the highest rated, and he sold the most merch. I mean, you could ask anyone from inside the company. He sold the most live tickets. You put Roman on a house show, you sell more tickets. You put out a new Roman shirt, he sells more than everybody. But I'm saying the people who make the best heels are the people who you once loved the most. And let's say we all go to dinner tonight in a pre-COVID era and we had not so great service from our waitress. She was kind of rude. Do we hate her more or less than our ex-girlfriend? No, we hate the ex-girlfriend way more because we first loved her and now we don't. That's just typical storytelling. You love them first and then you hate them later. I just think, the best heels make eventually the best baby face, and the best baby face, you get where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Carrie, what Carrie just said wrong. That's wrong, Carrie.
I'm not going to share what Carrie said. Y'all, if you see it on the live, just look. So let me ask you this, and you are correct about that. Then why did they never turn John Cena?
Because here's the difference, I think. John Cena is still to this day, as far as I know, he's granted more Make-A-Wishes than anyone else in history. Mm-hmm. And so you've positioned him as a champion to, and I hate to say this, sick children around the world. And to have them now have some of their hopes and dreams dashed because you wanted to tell a cool story. I don't know if that was necessarily the right call. Yeah. And he was also selling more merch than everybody. I mean, until he was off TV for an extended period of time, he was number one and Roman was number two. But then when he was off TV long enough, Roman passed him. And so I think with that in mind, knowing what he had done with his charitable works, it didn't make sense, especially in the later years where he's really winding down. He's trying to transition out. It probably made sense to just let him stay that good guy.
Yeah. So otherwise he wouldn't have done Ferdinand.
So my wife is totally against wrestling, but the one person that she knows by far over everybody else is John Cena because she works at Make-A-Wish. She works at Make-A-Wish, Alabama, and because she sees him plastered everywhere she goes, at every event, everything that goes to Make-A-Wish, because John Cena, and she knows him over Hulk Hogan. Yeah. And Nash, and of course she knows The Rock because The Rock's the biggest movie star right now. But John Cena is, to the layperson, he's more popular now than, just on that scale than anybody. Yeah. He has more Make-A-Wish. I think he has more wishes than anybody in Make-A-Wish history.
Yeah. So let me ask one more question to clarify the knowledge here. How does that work, that partnership then? Do you ever have you ever had an example where someone's doing great, they're selling merchandise, they make a change and it kills their career because now fans don't like the person, or vice versa, somebody who really was a nobody and one storyline all of a sudden makes them popular and they rise to the top? Is that
Miro?
Both. It's happened a lot of times on both sides. Probably the biggest example of a turn hurting a business is when Steve Austin was the hottest star in the world in 2001, but he felt like it was getting a little stale because he had essentially the same character from 97, 98, 99, and 2000.
Yeah.
So at the biggest WrestleMania ever in 2001, they switched and made him a bad guy, and the business never recovered. He was never as hot, never sold as many tickets, never sold as much merch. And you got to appreciate, he, as a businessman, he made money every time they sold one of his shirts.
Yeah.
So, if they sold the shirt for $20, I'm just freestyling. He probably made $5. Well, now if you're a bad guy, guess what? You're going to sell less shirts. So yes, you may have had a better storytelling device, but if fans weren't ready for that because they wanted to cheer you on and you be a good guy, and they don't watch as much, then that means, okay, ratings are down, ad revenue's down, and oh, by the way, you're selling less merch. His character never recovered. So there have been critical mistakes where, and I think that was a lesson as to why you don't do that with John Cena. If he's already our number one merch seller, there's only one place for him to go, and that's down. And also, too, you sort of alienate yourself from all the positive charitable work he's done. Let's just keep that going and keep our cash cow printing cash with these stupid, silly neon shirts. And it worked.
So, it still works. I mean, he still puts out a new shirt at least every 2 or 3 months. There's something new. That's a loyalty and respect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rock said it best. He's Fruity Pebble. I mean, every one of his shirts looks like a Fruity Pebbles box.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. So, Conrad, one last question. I do have. Is there going to be a Starcast anytime soon?
No, not during COVID. I mean, there was supposed to be one this past Labor Day in Chicago, but coronavirus had other plans. If everything's normal next year and people are doing conventions, and we're going to keep an eye on what happens for WrestleMania. The rumor and innuendo is they're going to do it in Tampa, and supposedly they won't even be social distancing. They're going to have an ass every 18 inches or whatever the old cliche is. So if that's what they do, then they'll probably do a WrestleCon there, and I'll get to see how that goes. But now that we have a new president, is that all going to change? Probably. It'll be interesting to see, what happens or doesn't happen. But I will not be the first wrestling convention to figure it out. I'm going to let somebody go before me, figure it out, and show me what to do more of and what to do less of. And if it looks feasible, I've got some really, really great ideas for the 5th one. And I'm okay if that's the last one. Adfreeshows.com is taking up so much of my time now. And I'm expanding the podcast even further than the 5 I've got right now. We haven't made any formal announcements there yet, but that's coming. And, knock on wood, this is our best year we've ever had in the mortgage business. So I literally don't have time to plan, 3 or 4 conventions a year, but I could do one, and I sure would like to do number 5 next year. I just need to see what's possible and what's feasible and get a playbook as far as best practices. Because I don't want to do it if a lot of people leave and they're sick because, they wanted to meet CM Punk or whatever. I don't want to do that.
All right. So I have to, first off, can you give us an exclusive? Can you give us a hint on the 6th?
Nope.
Okay. Hey, I'd have to ask you what kind of host. All right. And we do have a listener question real quick. Can we please ask Conrad his thoughts on GCW's collective in Indy? Was that a good idea?
Well, listen, they had to do it eventually. I think the world of Brett Lauderdale and what he's doing with Game Changer Wrestling, they were trying to do a solid, do a make good. Of course, it was originally supposed to happen WrestleMania weekend, and then all of that changed because of the coronavirus. But folks were running events by then, and there's been, indie events before and after that. And if we're honest, the thing it's not exactly like it was sold out and there were 3,000 people hanging from the rafters. I watched the show, but I watched the stream on Fight TV. And I think most people did, but I do understand that there is heat on them because they're the most prominent independent company out there. But I don't, it's hard for me to wrap my head around that they did anything that other indie companies weren't doing. Now they are held to a bigger standard. And if they had it to do over again, I'm sure they would have done a few things a little differently, but I think we're all learning through this together. And it's important to recognize that AEW, ran by multi-billionaires, and WWE, also ran by billionaires, have had similar coronavirus situations, probably even more prominent. And, it's unfair, I think, that they get lumped into that same category because they don't have the resources and the financial backing. But they were trying to make good by all the talent who needed paydays because these guys make their living as professional wrestlers. They hadn't been able to work in months. And a lot of fans had paid a lot of money to see them back in April. So they wanted to try to deliver on both ends, and I get the spirit of it. But yeah, in hindsight, it probably was something that they should have waited on, but they had to know, they had to try. And I think they've dialed a lot of that in because they're still running shows, and they have ever since. And we haven't heard circumstances or quote unquote horror stories like we had at the time. And also too, a lot of us were living in a much more heightened, I don't know. We were much more alert. I mean, I remember there was days where everybody I knew was leaving the house wearing gloves and masks if they were leaving the house at all. And now everybody's sort of figuring out what the new normal is. And I'm tired of that phrase too, but now we know a little bit more about this disease and what we can do and what we can't do. So I think people were making their best decisions at the time. I don't think there's any way that Brett would intentionally want anyone to get sick or hurt or whatever.
Yep. All right. I got one last thing, Conrad, and then I want you to plug everything, like give your socials, give everything, like all your podcast socials. What is, you're a collector as well, as we see in the background. What is your favorite item that you own?
The big gold belt, the original NWA World Championship. It was debuted on Valentine's Day of 1986 and then officially retired, I guess, by the WWE. But mine in particular, I think, was off TV by December of 2000. So you had a 14-year run with the same plates, and that's a big deal for a wrestling belt. And it made the rounds. That belt's been to North Korea. That belt's been to Japan. That belt's been, upheld in court. It was the NWA World title, and then on WWF TV and the WCW title, and Hogan spray painted it and played air guitar with it on Nitro. And, it was just a part of a lot of big moments. Muhammad Ali held that belt. So yeah, that's a pretty cool collectible and probably my best one.
So was yours held by somebody or?
Yeah, it's the belt.
It's the belt. Yeah, it's the belt.
The belt. Really?
Yeah, it's the belt. Not like a replica, but the actual one. Yeah.
And do you also own some of the original plates? Or
that's it. Yeah, those are the 3 plates. Like, this is the belt you saw on TV your whole life. It's
about the molds.
Yes, I have the molds that they used to make copies of the belt for WCW in I think 99 or 2000. Kevin Nash, DDP, Jeff Jarrett, Scott Steiner, a few of those guys got those over the years. And the WWF actually had, F at the time, they had a copy of the belt that they used as their world title. So like when Jericho was the undisputed champ, that was a copy of my belt, but I have the original. And I've turned down 6-figure offers for it because it's if it's not number 1, it's the number 2 most collectible belt around. And as luck would have it, it's in Huntsville, freaking Alabama.
And do you have the of your belts, right? That is your favorite belt. What other belts do you own? I know you have several.
Yeah, I have a lot. I have some I can't tell you about. My second favorite is probably the Big Eagle. We talked about earlier, the WrestleMania 17 with Rock and Austin. I have that particular belt from that WrestleMania. So it's pretty cool when you've got a Rock belt, an Austin belt, an Angle belt, a Hunter belt, a Jericho belt, and that's in the collection too. That's a big one. I've got the first and last ECW belts. I've got the best TNA belt that has the broken wing that like Joe and AJ and Angle and all those guys held. I just got the Goldust Intercontinental, which is kind of cool. So Goldust,
that's awesome.
And Ahmed Johnson. I just got a WWF tag from '97. So that one was held by Austin and Foley and Sean, Owen, Bulldog, LOD. So that's a good one. I've got the blue tags from the NWA back in the day. So Arn, Tully, Road Warriors, Midnights, Rock and Roll, everybody. What else?
How awesome is it to have that original belt and have Ric Flair in your house holding that belt?
Right.
I mean,
it's funny because once upon a time I could see how that would be a big deal, and
I get it. Yeah, I get it.
I've voicemailed him since I've been on the phone with you guys. So,
and Adam, his wife is the daughter to Ric Flair.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you know who Ric Flair is, that's a big deal.
Come on, give me a little bit of credit.
And but I have a question for you, Conrad. What is your all-time favorite match? Like one match that you can watch over and over and over again and never get tired of it.
Flair Funk is a good one from Clash, New York Knockout, in December of '89, Troy, New York.
Is that a Broadway? 1 hour Broadway?
No, it's an I Quit.
Okay,
that's a great one. I'm also a huge fan of Austin Brett, WrestleMania 13.
A double turn.
Just tremendous storytelling. I love the other one I recommended. I think the one to show a non-fan is Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio from Havoc 97, because the athleticism, the timing, the skill, it's just off the charts. I love Flair Vader from Starrcade 93. I love Shawn and Undertaker from Hell in a Cell in October of 97. I don't really like Hunter and Shawn, or not Hunter and Shawn, but I don't really like Taker and Shawn from WrestleMania 25 as much as everybody else does. I know it's a good match, but and I agree it's a great match, but I just didn't. I don't know if I just wasn't into wrestling as much at the time. I thought it was a great match, but I don't put it in that category with everybody else.
Him coming down like he was heaven sent kind of turned it off for me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I get the story they're trying to tell. One guy's coming from hell, the other guy's coming from heaven, the whole thing. I mean, I get that, but it was just, I'm with you, maybe a little too cheese. And here's the thing too, I was a big fan of both of those guys, but the Undertaker never really hit for me the way he did for everybody else. Like,
Thank you.
Really?
Thank you.
I
I do like Undertaker, but he's not the godsend by any means. He's not like I like the Undertaker. Don't get me wrong, he's great. He does a lot of great stuff, but everybody else wants to paint this picture of how great and wonderful he is and all this. But he was just a big guy. I mean, it's hard to be. He was a good working big guy. That is true.
He had the tremendous entrance. He had
entrance. Yeah.
Come on, Dave. Fight.
I mean, Dave is.
Come
Dave's,
on.
Dave,
That's
Dave go
like
back
somebody saying Phantom's not a great Broadway musical to you.
He's
Come
just
on.
okay. It's all right. But I mean, I'm wearing the WCW from 1997, 1998. Maybe probably 99. I go 98. Is that the
got the red on? Yeah.
Yeah.
My two favorite wrestlers, and Eric is going to flame me here. My two favorite wrestlers of all time, Kevin Nash and Undertaker.
And
fight.
Yeah, no, just because I like the big guy. I like the big guy that can just beat everybody and should beat everybody.
Well, to put in perspective, Dave is 6'6". He's 6'6". So yeah. I mean, he likes the big guys, but definitely.
I do too. You know, Sid's a guilty pleasure of mine. I love Sid, but I love the Undertaker too, and I can appreciate all of his work. But I'm just saying, you know, by and large, there was never a time where I was like, oh man, I can't wait to see this Undertaker match. I mean, he had good matches. He was entertaining. Live, it's one of the most impressive entries.
Oh, I was about to say, yeah. Live, it's amazing.
If you take someone to just see, and I don't think he gets enough credit, but Jim Johnston hit such a home run with that theme song. But just the lighting, the smoke, the purple, the slow walk there, it's a presentation. And I think that's what the Undertaker is to me more than an in-ring performer. It was the overall presentation of the character, not so much ding, ding, ding. Okay, here comes a barn burner.
Yeah, he's never been great bell to bell. You're right. It's the character to me. And you know, he's got a great entrance right now. He hadn't wrestled in a while, but rumor is he's wrestling in a couple weeks. But I think his best entrance was 98, 97 when he was with or was it 99? The Corporate Ministry.
Yeah, I actually hated that. That was my least favorite. But you know, we're different ages. You know, I just know because you said you started watching in 95. It's the worst possible time to start watching. So I'm a little older. So I liked the early Undertaker, and I liked the American Badass version of the Undertaker. But when it was the Attitude Era Undertaker, just didn't hit for me. You know,
really?
I'm going to kill you and sacrifice you and, you know, crucify you. It was like, oh, this is just.
I mean,
Kane was more of an impact to me than Undertaker was.
It was
Kane's
lame.
Fight.
Yeah, it was lame. But then Undertaker and, you know, him being sacrificed on the tee. I don't know. That just seemed.
That was dumb.
What about when Undertaker was dressed as Kane?
How do you
happen?
How do you?
I know. How do you know about that?
I did some recon. Come on.
Oh, he just look at ringside collectibles.
Well, no,
Dead Man's Revenge.
I watched a few videos. Come on.
Okay.
Well, that was a great angle. You know,
that was
great job of that, especially on a tape show. It was still a surprise. So yeah, he told a lot of great stories. But you know, recently we've seen Mankind say the Undertaker made him in the WWF. I think the Undertaker needed somebody, and I thought that character was just sort of flailing around. And then the Mankind feud that they did in 96 with him, I thought really leveled up the Undertaker in a big way. So when he has the right dance partner, the Undertaker is just able to create magic. But then if you put him in there with a Bundy or Gonzalez, it's
Gonzalez big time bad. That was terrible. But you so you hit on it. But if for the Undertaker, what other character would be the best? I mean, would be the best character in all of wrestling, like in wrestling history, like character wise? Would that not be the best character ever?
Of course, absolutely.
Shockmaster, wasn't that the best character in wrestling history?
It was,
guys, we're winding down now.
I know.
So can I ask you one last question?
Yeah, sure.
This comment right here: if Taker didn't have the streak, is he as big of a deal?
Of course.
So if I'm relating that back to everything that I've learned tonight, did he have the streak because he was already a big deal? And I'm a serious question.
No.
Did he have the streak because he was popular, or was that part of the story that made him popular?
Total accident. Wasn't a plan. It was on the way to WrestleMania 18. Michael Hayes, who is a producer now for the company and was at that time, said, "Did y'all realize that Undertaker has never lost at WrestleMania?" And they fact checked and they came to the same conclusion. Oh my gosh, he's 9-0. So once the Undertaker won at WrestleMania 18, he held up 10 fingers to signify that he's 10-0. And that's the first time anybody ever talked about the streak, and it became a part of the story. And just like in football, it became, hey, can he keep the streak alive? And it became a new storytelling device. So then years and years and years later, when he finally did lose, it was a monumental deal because nobody thought the streak would ever come to an end. So it wasn't the main event. There wasn't a world title on the line, but the build for the show was, I'm going to be the one and you're 21-1 or whatever it is. And when he finally lost the streak, it was a big deal, and it's still debated to this day. So it's another example of where stats used in wrestling can be a storytelling element to sort of make it relatable to sports, even though we know, well, it's not really, we get that, but it adds to the story and the stakes, if you will, of why you want to win.
Do I sound like that?
No, you don't.
So is there anybody that you have not met in wrestling that you would like to meet?
Nope.
Is there anybody that you've met where you've just been floored? Besides like drinking beer with Stone Cold in a hotel room, is there any other time where you'd be just absolutely floored with, like, in your experiences that you've had? Or is it every day you wake up and it's every day?
I mean, my first WrestleMania is probably the biggest one because I went for my very first WrestleMania. It was WrestleMania 30 in New Orleans. I'm there and I go into the back. That's how I get into the building with Ric Flair. And I got my picture made with The Rock and Steve Austin and Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan. And Ric Flair was the cameraman for all of those photos. That was pretty surreal. And then actually getting, sequestered to meet with Vince McMahon and have a private meeting with him on a TV day when there was talent probably lined up to talk to him, and somehow he wanted to talk to me was pretty freaking surreal. So I didn't exactly know what to say. And, I've through the course of my life, through, my sales work and my mortgage stuff and all my podcasting, I've had to speak to groups of thousands of people before, but I was somehow a little more nervous and a little more anxious about sitting in just a room with me and Vince. Like, what do I say to, like, if you're a wrestling fan, this is our Walt Disney, and he knows my name and invited me to meet him, and we're having a conversation and he's asking about my family. That was a weird deal. So yeah, that's probably the most surreal, but yeah, getting drunk with Ric Flair and Stone Cold at a bar, that's pretty hard to beat too.
So I have to ask this, and we'll close it right here. We've taken enough of your time, but
after he plugs, he has to plug
after he plugs, of course. But is Vince, does he carry himself in private as this larger than life character, or is he just Vince McMahon, regular old guy behind closed doors?
Regular old guy. Now, don't get me wrong. You're shaking hands with a billionaire who created most of the stuff you grew up loving. So the intimidation isn't from him. It's in your own head because you know who this guy is and what he did and how important his contributions are to your life. As silly as that sounds, you know, you go back and what if there was no George Lucas? Like, imagine how important and how, incredible that really is. And imagine in my dad's lifetime, if there was no Bear Bryant, like what a big deal he was to my dad's life. And, some people, if you're not a Star Wars fan or you're not a college football fan, those examples may not make any sense, but to grow up in a world where there was no Mickey Mouse and no Disney, that would be weird. And to grow up in a world where, Hulk Hogan, there was no Stone Cold, there was no Rock. That would just be weird, even if you weren't a real longtime wrestling fan. And so the only bravado and anxiety and airs about Vince are what we put on in our own mind, because he was just a regular dude and couldn't have been nicer. And I met him twice, but that was the first time we had like an extended conversation. And yeah, he was delightful. It's easy to see why people are charmed by him and want to do business with him. And I mean, he has that whole law of attraction thing down pat. Like, you want to like this guy.
That's pretty cool. All right, Conrad, I can't thank you enough for coming and spending time with us, talking wrestling for an hour or so. If people want to tweet at you, if they want to follow your shows, if they want to, find you, how do they do that?
Just go to savewithconrad.com or find me on social at Hey It's Conrad. I'm pretty much on all the socials that way. It's HeyHeyItsConrad. Hey It's Conrad. And that's it, man. Appreciate you guys having me on, and thanks for letting me talk wrestling with you guys. And hopefully you'll convince our friend to sit down and watch a match with you and pick one of those. I think you'll be in good shape.
I'm going to try. If they can get me to watch Star Wars, then Adam's watching a Wrestlemania.
Oh yeah, that's a fair trade. I'll go for that.
That might be something we do that's exactly something we're going to do for our Patreon. We'll let them watch Adam watch wrestling. Adam, if they want to get a hold of our show, what's that phone number?
Yeah, 650-UAB show. Spell it out on your keypad. You'll hear a message from us followed by a beep.
Beep.
Thank you, Dave. And then leave a message for us, a question, a hot take, just something you want to geek out about. We'll play it on the show. We do it every time we get a call. 650-UAB show, or you can hit us up on socials. Dave, tell them how to do that. So
the show is at Not Related Bros on Twitter. We are at Unrelated at Birth on Instagram. I'm DAdams419 on both Instagram and Twitter. Adam's just on Instagram, Run Tide Run. The show on Facebook, find us, just facebook.com/Unrelated at Birth. Also join our Facebook fan group where we just chat. We've had a lot of chats this last couple of weeks because we just find some fun stuff to geek out about on the Facebooks. Also, if you are so inclined, $5 a month, patreon.com/Unrelated at Birth. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us. It means a lot that y'all hang out with us so much over the week. We truly do love you guys, and I know that sounds cliche, but we mean it. Adam, take them home.
Yeah, guys, thanks for giving us some more of your time this week. We love you, but not as much as Jesus does. Be kind to one another out there. Stay safe, and we will catch you guys next week.
Bye, guys.